to the National STEM Championship 2023. Now, last week, we saw Raffles Girls' School and Raffles Institution clinch their spots in the grand final. Now, only 2 spots remain. Who will emerge as the top team from semi-final 3 and 4? It's going to be a nail-biting finish to the end. But for now, let's get straight to it. Here are the 4 teams from semi-final 3.
Anglo-Chinese School Independent, Victoria School, DPS International School, and Chongqing High School, Maine. Their challenge today has got something to do with a chronic disease that affects over 300,000 Singaporeans.
Welcome to NKF. As you know, NKF has been around for 50 years. We have been known to be only providing dialysis care for our patients. But that is not all we do. We are actually concerned about prevention. Prevention to us is more important because people with kidney disease, a lot of them are undiagnosed or do not follow up. And that is our concern. I hope today's challenge will encourage you to look into the issues deeper, and hopefully you have come up with some things that may help us in the longer term.
At the National Kidney Foundation, NKF Singapore, our teams got a better understanding of kidney failure and its leading causes. They also learned about different dialysis treatments such as peritoneal dialysis, where a permanent catheter is placed in the abdominal cavity to enable dialysis to be done at home. While hemodialysis treatment is through a dialysis machine and is performed thrice a week at a dialysis center. Teams had to look at what happens inside a hemodialysis filter, which functions like a kidney to filter out waste. Then it was question time, followed by a sharing from Miss City, a dialysis patient of 7 years.
Doctor say, SCT, she got to do dialysis. I know it's for life. It's for life and there's no Newton and there's no medication for it.
I think her story was personally very touching, and she was such a cheerful person even after going through dialysis. And it shows that dialysis isn't going to ruin your life, and she has a lot of positivity around her.
Our teams in semi-final 3 have learned that if kidney function drops below 10%, dialysis is needed to remove waste and excess water from the blood. That is how critical dialysis treatment is. But will this information be useful for their challenge?
For today's challenge, we will be focusing on the role our kidneys play in maintaining our general health. So there are 2 parts to this challenge. Part 1, you are required to create a kidney filtration model to show how our kidneys remove the waste and unwanted fluids from our blood. Part 2, with diabetes and hypertension being the leading causes of kidney failure, you are required to show and explain how these conditions affects the kidneys using the models created earlier. So in your respective team, you'll find the items you may need to complete the challenge.
Teams only have 1 hour to complete this challenge.
The first thing you use make the blood. Make the blood. Nowadays, you handle the science.
I think the hardest part of this challenge is that we actually had to figure out how to work with the materials that were given to us, because the materials that were given to us were very limited. And even though some of them were very straightforward, for example using a flexible host channel blood, some were a bit more complicated, such as the cornstarch. We were wondering what is for until one group member suggested we could use to thicken the water. So overall I think it was quite an interesting challenge as we managed to sort of improvise with what we have.
Do not.
So it's like that, flows an artery,
So like we meant
ultrafiltration.
Okay.
Okay, and then it goes down, selective reabsorption, it goes like that. I speak for all of us when we did not expect this challenge at all, because most of the challenges we took on in the past mostly revolve around physics concepts and chemistry concepts. So to venture into biology, I think is something we did not expect. I think additionally, the challenge came at a perfect timing because all of us are learning about the kidney and excretion and urinary system at this time. So it definitely wasn't expected that this coincidence will occur.
Yeah, it's not related.
No,
It's not. It's true.
the hardest part of this challenge might have been time management, because all of us had different ideas and it took us a long time to come clear with the concepts and agree to one particular idea, and things such as like the tubes were quite new to us, so it took us some time to figure out how it works.
Should we put a tubing in here so that we can pour this in?
Yeah.
Like My biggest learning point today is learning how to adapt to the situation. Because when we were given the challenge, we were planning to use the dialysis tubes to function as the renal arteries and the renal veins, but we didn't really know how it worked. So in the end, we used a plastic foil to actually roll it up with tape, and it actually functioned quite normally as well.
Our 4 teams have worked hard and tirelessly on their kidney filtration models. Now they have a short 2 minutes to show how and if their filtration models work, followed by a 3-minute presentation. Our judges will be on the lookout for clear concept explanation, accurately demonstrated models, and creativity. First up, we have Victoria School.
First, we'll show the demonstration of a person with no major medical conditions. This represents ultrafiltration. This represents selective reabsorption in the kidney. So as you can see, the larger particles were filtered out. This selective reabsorption, and the remaining waste comes out of the tube over here. So right now, I'm simulating the bursting of the capillaries of the glomerulus. As you can see, the bigger substances also float.
So this is the macro model. It basically is a nephron. This represents the blood in the rest of the body, and this part here represents the kidney and its filtrational functions. Oh no, the tissue. Originally, our nephron was supposed to, the tissue was there to kind of filter the thing better, but instead the tissue clogged the whole filter up. It was supposed to be a good kidney, but then it didn't turn out well, so we somehow managed to pivot quite quickly without discussion. We managed to come to a common understanding that, okay, yeah, now it's a damaged nephron.
So it's meant to demonstrate a damaged kidney already? Or?
Oh yeah, this is, yeah. This. Move.
The tubes were to show veins and arteries in the model, but over here we used them to transfer our fluids, where we filtered it through the pipes.
They just had tubes dangling everywhere and just quietly doing their thing, but not articulating what exactly they're demonstrating. That came across a little bit disorganized.
First, we're going to do the healthy kidney, the demonstration. So this is the renal artery. So as you can see, the glitter inside the blood component has accumulated in the filter that we used, which was the tissue papers. The prototype and the demonstration didn't go as planned because our waste materials, or I guess what we intended to emulate waste materials, didn't really go into the renal vein. I guess we sort of understood the concept, but it didn't really apply in the demonstration due to some constraints that we had.
Looks like some mistakes were made during the demonstrations, but the final scores haven't been tallied just yet. Still to come, we've got the presentations, so will our teams be able to bounce back? Find out after the break. Welcome back. It is our 3rd semi-final at the National Kidney Foundation NKF Singapore. Our teams are done with their kidney filtration model demonstration, and now it's time for their presentation. Now remember, concepts must be clearly presented and creativity is key. It all hinges on this moment.
Well, we are an NKF, but the kidney does function as a cleaning agent of our body to cleanse our blood of urea and excess salts. So there are 2 main processes involved, ultrafiltration and selective reabsorption. When the blood enters into the glomerulus, due to the high hydrostatic pressure, it pushes against the thin walls of the capillary, and the small particles can be forced and filtered out, such as the glucose, water, and urea and excess salts.
I was particularly impressed by Victoria School, especially the key presenter from the school. He was super articulate, very smooth in his delivery. His explanation was still clear, and also their demonstration was quite well set up and quite well thought through on the whole.
So for patients with diabetes, right, they will have a high blood glucose concentration, which will result in their blood becoming more coagulated and it will become more thick, as shown by the diagram here.
We are able to use our biology concepts and what we have learned to accurately explain to the judges how the kidney works, the various issues with it, and the various substances that might cause its damage.
So up here we have the glomerulus, which is essentially just a ball of blood vessels, and what happens here is ultrafiltration. So essentially, right, blood passes through at high pressure.
ACSI impressed me the most. I especially like the model demonstration. It is so clear And at the end of the day, I can see how a healthy kidney filtration work and a diseased kidney filtration work.
I think all in all, I do feel confident about today's challenge because I do feel we succeeded on like a metric of like a few factors. So firstly, we were able to present a working model of the glomerulus and also of the kidney itself. And secondly was our scientific accuracy. So I'm really glad that all extra hours that our team put into studying biology really paid off.
Hypertension is very harmful because if the blood flows at a very high pressure, it can damage the blood vessels and the nephron. This can cause scarring, and this tubule eventually becomes constricted and smaller.
I feel that DPS school have done pretty well. They are able to describe exactly what happened in kidney disease, and I can see that they cope to the pressure well also.
Today I learned that it's very hard to detect kidney failure in the early stages. So going forward, I'd like to use the STEM knowledge to detect kidney failure early on.
Help! I think I have kidney failure. My toes are swelling.
Charlotte's toes are swelling. Let us check her kidney.
Chongqing High School main did very well because I thought they distilled the complex scientific concept into very simple layman term.
Personally, I think that the presentation went quite well because the judges approved our idea and they complimented it. And they said that we had a sound understanding of the concept and everything that we've learned today.
And that wraps up semi-final 3. Well done, you guys. Your kidney filtration models were superb, but only one team can be filtered through to the grand finals. Now, that one team that's taking the coveted spot is Anglo-Chinese School Independent. And now there's just one last spot left. It's gotta be one of these 4 teams from semi-final 4.
Hwa Chong Institution, Temasek Junior College, NUS High School of Math and Science, and Methodist Girls' School.
And let's see where they went, because it's got to do with transportation.
Welcome to the Singapore Land Authority, or SLA. The main job of SLA is to manage a very large stock of state properties. The other main job of SLA is to promote the use of geospatial technology.
I'll give you a brief background about what SLE is all about. As you know, Singapore, we have very limited land. So we have the vision of having a limited land and unlimited space.
Limited land but unlimited space? How does that work? Well, the Singapore Land Authority, SLA, uses geospatial science to gather information about locations. By applying STEM disciplines to geospatial data, teams can address many challenges from environmental science to urban planning and transportation. You might be surprised, but we actually use the information from geospatial data every day, like in navigation apps. Besides that, our teams got to check out some very cool equipment that's used in gathering data.
So, showing you 2 techniques of data collection for land surveying. So, you heard about LiDAR, right? It's a light detection and ranging.
The part I found the most interesting was when we learned about LiDAR, which was using the laser to capture the 3D image of the entire place.
This session, we will share with you on the basic about digital photogrammetry and how it actually can be used to create 3D models. Photogrammetry actually works similarly with photograph. We take multiple images, we put it into a software to process it into what we term as 3D models.
So I found that quite interesting because I found it similar to how our binocular vision works, because our eyes take 2 different images and triangulate to give us depth perception. So it really gave me some insight into that.
So in this challenge, it's really to use the maps that SLA has and the data that we have for the students to come up with a very good cycling route. For example, in just navigation, choosing places to eat, where you can spend your CTC vouchers, where you get budget meals, and so on. So it's really geographical information that's useful for everyday life.
Our teams in semi-final 4 have learned that with geospatial data and STEM disciplines, they're able to address complicated issues in various fields. Will they find this knowledge useful? Let's see.
Teams only have 1.5 hours to complete their challenge.
The hardest part of this challenge that we faced was actually mapping out the route. When we
selected one point on the map, the point that was selected on the map would jump to a seemingly random location that's miles away from the point that we selected. So we had to go through a lot of trial and error to actually get the route to be what we liked and what we wanted it to be the most optimal.
This experience was very new to us because this wasn't a field that I was exposed to before. But then we encountered one problem along our way, which is we used the wrong units for our math calculation, but we managed to overcome that in the end.
They used an algorithm known as Dijkstra's, which helped us in our problem statement. So it basically found the shortest route considering distance from one place to another, given a bunch of segments where you have to pass through.
If we were to plan a route for cyclists, most likely we have to cater for different types of cyclists. And while we are definitely unable to cater for every single person to ensure they'll always have a route which they feel will be great for them, we can just kind of split cyclists into two main groups. Immature cyclists who cannot cycle for extremely long, and cyclists who can cycle for longer distance and time. So in this way, people from these two different groups will be able to select their route depending on how much they wish to accept themselves.
We already planned the route, but because it's only 8 km, so we still need So the first thing we had to consider was the cost, which is basically the time taken to travel the whole entire route. And something we struggled was figuring out the time taken to travel up slope and travel down slope. Then the second thing we had to consider was the points of interest. So initially, we're just playing around with the points, but afterwards we decided to plan on how we could choose the points of interest based on whether they were monuments or historical places.
Our teams are done with their planning, but their presentation awaits. Which cycling route will come out on top? We're off for a break, but you gotta come back to find out. Welcome back to the National STEM Championship 2023. This is the fourth and last semi-final, and there's only one more spot left in the grand final. Did our teams get their math equations right? Are their points of interest relevant? Is their route less than 20 kilometers? Let's see which teams make the greatest impression on the judges to snag that last spot.
We have selected to visit around 72 POIs. However, there might be potentially more as we have only counted the POIs that are along the main path. And usually since some POIs are quite tall, they should be easily viewable.
The presentation was alright. However, some of the judges' questions were indeed quite surprising to us, especially the quality control question.
Was any quality control done to your input data? Did you check whether the data is accurate?
When we received the data, we just assumed that most of the data points are accurate enough for the calculation for the route. We did think about it a bit, but we did not really think about it much while planning the route. We were just thinking of finding the most efficient route.
Hello, so we are from 702H Travel Agency, and would you like to hear more about our cycling tour package?
Oh, a cycling tour? I've never been across a cycling tour before. My tours last time are always bus tours or walking tours. This sounds so cool. Tell me more about it.
For our presentation, we tried to link the main problem to real-life situations. We decided to become a travel agency pitching a cycling tour to tourists. And we used this theme to pinpoint points of interest in Singapore where we could lead the tourists to learn more about Singapore's history and see its current development. Roads that have a decline will have a negative angle, which will cause the 100 to decrease. So this will cause it to have a lower percentage than 100, so it will also decrease the cost.
The school that impressed us a lot today is actually Temasek Junior College, whereby they actually came up with a very thoughtful process of design thinking, as well as how they can actually put up pieces of psychological side of the work, as well as more mathematical side of the work together to form the route that they plan for this challenge.
Let's list down all the criteria that you would want to consider. We have distance, speed, elevation, greenery, and shelter. So let's start with them one by one and see how it contributes to our cost. First, time. This incorporates both the distance and the speed limit.
When we're designing the equation, we use certain functions such as sign button. When we put it into the Python coding and tried to let the program run, it wasn't able to run fast enough, and so it took quite some time, but then we were able to get our final values in the last few minutes of time.
Oh, but what if I'm more tired and I don't want to take such a long route?
Well, then you can just go to the cluster of POIs rather than the entire route.
Actually, I think there's no such thing as a perfect route. So I think some of the teams actually realize this. So they have option 1, option 2, option 3, so catering to different needs and interests of the cyclist. So if you are a history buff, you have 1 or 2 routes for you. Even history is very diverse. Stanford Raffles, modern history, and so on. So there are many others, so depending on your interests.
News travels.
Always giving you the best route possible,
no matter where you're from or when you're from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a green bicycle and there's a blue bicycle. Whoa, which one should I choose? I want to travel around the whole Singapore, you know.
Fear not, for we have Bicycle, your cycling buddy. Never travel by yourself. We are a bicycle app who provides many fantastic, amazing, beautiful bicycles for you to ride on, as well as many fantastic, amazing, beautiful routes for you to cycle on.
For our presentation, we mainly acted as bicycle app, helping and providing services to the customers who use our bicycles. Another point we tried to bring in was about our historical importance in Singapore, because we find that historical importance may not be as significant in today's context, but we hope for Singaporeans to be able to experience all these historical monuments and get to understand our history more.
So I would say the students are really, their development has been very holistic. I'm very proud of them. Some of the things that they might be lacking might be life experience. Maybe they haven't really gone on a trip of their own. They haven't really planned, let's say, a trip overseas on their own, so they wouldn't think about things like having rest breaks, toilet breaks, and things like that. But I don't penalize them at all for that.
All our semi-finalists have done their best in the National STEM Championship 2023, and we are so proud of you. However, this is still a competition, and only the top team from semi-final 4 can move on to the grand final. So here it is. Give it up for Temasek Junior College. Well done, you guys. And now, the moment we've been waiting for. Here are your 4 teams in the National STEM Championship 2023 Grand Final.
Raffles Institution, Raffles Girls' School, Anglo-Chinese School Independent, and Temasek Junior College.
Join me in next week's exciting episode where our top 4 teams will battle it out in the Grand Final. Who will be crowned National STEM Champion 2023? We'll find out together. I'm Sonia, and I'll catch you next week.